Hello, in this video I'm going to show you effect monsters and different types of monster summons. So this card, Gigabyte, will be normal summoned from your hand. Now notice the level of this card, 4 stars here. Now if your monster is up to 4 levels, then you can normal summon him like that. If you have a level 5 or 6 monster, then you can still normal summon, but you'll need to tribute one monster that you control. So, for example, if Gigabyte was already in play, then to summon this monster, I would need to tribute one monster in play that I control. So I'd send this one to the graveyard. Similarly, if I had a level 6, I need to tribute one monster. If you can't tribute a monster, then you can't summon any level 5 or above level monsters. Now level 7 or more, for example this one, you need to tribute 2 monsters. So if I had these in play, then to summon this, I need to tribute 2 monsters. As you can see, this monster level is 7. So for monsters with level 7 or more, you need to tribute 2 of your monsters. So I'd have to send these 2 to the graveyard. If you have a level 5 or 6 monster that you want to set, you still need to tribute one monster that you control. If I wanted to set a monster of level 7 or more, I'd need to tribute 2 monsters I control. Now there's different types of effects. One of the most common ones is ignition effect that you can play once during your turn. Has an effect where once per turn can target one face-up monster I control, and if it attacks a defense position monster this turn, inflicts piercing battle damage to the opponent. Piercing battle damage simply means if you attack a defense position monster and your attack value is higher than its defense, you'll still deal damage to the opponent equal to their difference. So another ignition type effect on this monster. This Rapid Warrior says, during your main phase 1 you can activate this card's effect. If you do, you can attack the opponent directly this turn. Other monsters cannot attack during the turn you activate this effect. Another type of monster effect is a continuous one, and now this one doesn't need to be activated, it's always in play. So my example here, the Fortress Warrior has an effect that says you take no battle damage from battles involving this card. So that's always in effect. Now another common effect on the monster is a trigger. Now this will happen if a condition is met. So for example this card, Dark Tinker, says when this card you control is sent to the graveyard, look at the top card of your deck, return that card to either the top or the bottom of the deck. So this happens when this card is sent to the graveyard from play, and that's a trigger effect. Now another type of trigger effect is a flip effect, and this happens when you flip summon the monster, or the card that's face down becomes flipped. So for example, when it's set, and during your main phase you decided to flip summon it, you would resolve its flip effect. In this case it says select and destroy one monster on the field. I wanted to show you something about card effects. If you can see, every monster has an attribute, and this one is wind. You can see in the top right the symbols there. Some effects will target wind type monsters, or some effects may target the monster type. In this case, this is a beast. Some effects may actually target the name type. So in this case, this is a ritual beast. And you'll notice when the effect is targeting the name of the card, because you'll see here, ritual beast here is in inverted commas. So the inverted commas is referring to the name part of the card. Now I'm going to show you various special summons. Now this is an XYZ monster. You can tell because it has a black coloured background. And how you summon these is you have an extra deck, which is not part of your main deck. And with this extra deck, you'll have a stock of powerful monsters. Now to get XYZ monsters into play, you'll need to have the right XYZ materials. In this case, Shock Kaiser, it says I need 3 or more level 3 monsters. So how you summon this monster is, you need to have 3 level 3 monsters. So let's say they were in play, then now that I have the minimum requirement to summon this monster, I can now summon it. And what I do is I stack these monsters on top of each other. Then I take my XYZ monster and place it on top. The XYZ materials, the monsters that I've used, they are no longer monsters. They're simply XYZ material now. In this case it says once per turn I can detach 1 XYZ material and then place a counter on this card. If it attacks or is attacked, gains 1000 attack for each shock counter on it during the damage step only. Now, once I've detached an XYZ material, that card goes into the graveyard, and I get a counter to place on top of this Shock Kaiser. Synchro Summons are another type of special summon. Now these Synchro monsters also come from the extra deck. Now to summon this Synchro monster, you need the required materials. In this case it says 1 tuner monster and 1 or more non-tuner monsters. What you also need is that the total levels of the Synchro materials needs to be exactly equal to to the synchro monster that you're summoning. So in this case I have one tuner type monster, you can see here, level 3, and I have a non-tuner type monster, level 3, and I need to have both of those in play. Then when I'm declaring the Synchro Summon, I'll have the required synchro materials that I can send to the graveyard. As you can see, the total levels of both of those cards are 6, and Gaia Knight Force of Earth is also level 6. So I can send these to the graveyard. Now this card is a fusion monster, and it requires a special spell that can summon this type of fusion monster. Now there's quite a few fusion spells out there, but not only do you need the fusion spell, you also need the required fusion materials too. So this fusion monster requires Gemnite Lapis and a Gemnite monster. Now where I get these materials from depends on the fusion summoning card that I'm using. This would be a spell card, for example polymerization. I can summon one fusion monster from my extra deck using the monsters from my hand or my side of the field as fusion materials. If I had a Gemnite Fusion spell card, you can also summon this monster. Now to fusion summon, you need to activate your summoning card like you would a spell, take your fusion materials, put them in the graveyard, then you can put your fusion monster onto the field and then put your fusion summoning card into the graveyard. Now I'm going to show you some ritual monsters, and these monsters are placed in your main deck, not your extra deck. So they're placed with the rest of your spells, traps, normal monsters. And to summon them, you need a very specific ritual summon spell. So for example in this case, the Vanquished requires a Black Illusion Ritual. You could also use Advanced Ritual Art, which will allow you to ritual summon any one ritual monster. For example, Necros of Carcellus, or Demise, King of Armageddon. Now, these ritual monsters are placed in your main deck, so you'll draw them just like any other card, spell, trap, or monster. The ritual spell card itself will come with some associated tribute costs, and once you've paid those tributes and other costs, you're able to place your ritual monster onto the field, and then place the ritual spell card into the graveyard. There are many card effects that can special summon particular monsters. Spell cards, traps, and monster effects. One thing to note is that you can special summon a monster in either face-up attack or defense position.